And welcome back. Yes. We're jumping into our second segment for today, which is a great opportunity to find out more about visiting photographer. Of course, we had the conversation last week with the representative of the Mexican Embassy about the ongoing exhibit and photography course that is being offered, and we're now joined by their feature photographer, Mara Sanchez Renero. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, I want to say, first of all, welcome to Belize. And before we talk about the sessions that you're having and also some of the tips that you provide, I want to talk a little bit about your background as a photographer, how you first got into it, and what has led you to this specific path that you're on now.
Well, I start having like my own. I start like wanting to learn about photography by myself. You know? So I had a camera, and I did a trip long time ago that I took a lot of pictures. And in that trip, I realized that I really liked the photography. You know, so I decided to study photography, and I moved to Barcelona. I studied there for 5 years, and then I stood there in Barcelona 10 years, like working, doing a lot of activities around photography. I also work as an assistant for a Swedish photographer. She was very restricted, but she taught me very well. And after I came back to Mexico 5 years ago, and I haven't stopped doing photography since I began studying. So it has been a very like enjoyable and rich experience.
How do you find the profession in Mexico in terms of your career there and just being able to find work, the quality of work that you would want to put out? How do you find that in your home country?
In Mexico, well, I think before anything you have to define the type of photography you do, because there's so many types of photography. I mean, you can be a journalist, like a photojournalist, you could be a fashion photographer, you could be a portrait photographer. I specialize, and that came in as an very organic way, you know, like through the time. For work, I do a lot of portraits. I work doing portraits in cultural. Also, I do cultural things. Yeah. But normally it's portraits, no. And then I also work a lot doing architecture photography. And I teach.
You
also.
Teach as well.
And by the side, I do my personal projects. No? And that's another kind of a line. No?
Well, speaking of your personal projects, there's currently an exhibit up of your photographs, and I can't remember the exact title. I believe it's The Unknown World of Afro-Mexican.
But the title is The Cimarrón and the Fandango.
Okay.
And cimarrón is how they used to call to the maroons, black maroons, like here. You know? It's something they used to call the black slaves who escaped. They call them cimarrones. That they are kind of referring to this animal that is like kind of a goat. That they thought that this animal was not domesticable, or you know. So it was a savage animal always, no? It was impossible to domesticate. So when a slave like escaped, they used to say it was a cimarrón, no? Someone that cannot be,
Mara, I think this exhibit speaks a lot to what one would assume where your passion really is with photography, capturing aspects of life that are undiscovered or perhaps not a part of the regular conversations within societies. Not everyone who has a background in photography chooses to go this route. Why is it important to you to document aspects of culture and kind of just put them out there for everybody to see?
Well, I think one of the reasons I started doing photography was because it was a possibility to observe. You know, like the camera always gives you this. It's a tool to kind of have a contact and to focus in things. No? And I always have been very fan of humanity somehow. And I think it's very important to talk about bad things of humans, but I really like to talk about the light inside of humanity. And so my question always goes around identity, aspects of identity. And also I like a lot to recognize what history has made us, like how history made us, or makes us. And so I think my main topic is identity aspects.
Have you been able to impart this knowledge and your specific point of view at looking at the role of history and the impact it has had, and then be able to channel that to your students?
Well, I try to do that, but I think for my students, I don't try to impose my point of view.
Yeah.
I think it's like what I tell, taught them, or I try to tell them, is to find their own inspirations. So when I do this kind of a workshop, as the one that I'm doing now, at the end I have a very diverse body of works from each one of them, because that's the thing about it. I think that's important, so that each one recognize what's their own inspiration and what's the things that they are kind of interested in, to talk about.
Yeah. Now, when you're working on putting together perhaps a series or documenting, as you have with these communities, these Afro-Mexican communities, how do you know what images are the ones you will share? Because with digital photography, there are thousands of photographs that you have. But how do you know that this one out of maybe this set of 500 is the one that will evoke the type of emotion or connection that you hope for?
Oh, this is a very good question. I think that's the editing process, and I think for the edition, like to select, to do, then is when you enter the narrative part of the work. So for that, I think you have to be very aware of what's the theme you are talking about, and what. So when you have clear what are you talking about, then it's easier to select the images that shows that, somehow. And sometimes you have to throw, kill your dolls. That's it. Sometimes you really have to take out a picture that is beautiful, but it doesn't match with, theme, and it doesn't helps to in the narrative. Of
so at the
topic.
very fundamental level, the picture must be able to tell a story in and of itself, right?
Well, I think yes. I definitely support that idea. I think the photography is not only about beauty or having a good photography. I think is the main object or not target, is that the main goal in photography is to communicate. So I think you have to see more, be more focused on that than on aesthetic aspects.
Now, what is your process, your individual process as a photographer and artist in capturing a moment? I once had a photographer tell me anybody can take a good picture with luck and lighting and good skill, but ultimately there is additional sense about what may take place right before your eyes and capturing it. What is your process?
Well, I think there's so many ways to approach photography, but I am not a documentary photographer. For me, it's it's a more constructed process, because my photographies are not spontaneous captures. My photographies are constructed and produced somehow, even though that I work with social topics, and with real people who are kind of experience the topic that I'm talking about or living through it. I all the time have the process to first make an investigation, like a research about the thing, and after that I recreate in my mind, and I kind of work as the cine, like the cinema.
Yeah.
I do like, so normally I do a storyboard. Normally, and then I go with the people and I talk to them. I show them my idea, and then we together go and take the picture. And I kind of control everything at the moment, you know. But I think also there's another approach, and another approach is to maybe go and be in front of moving things and moving history, and to capture them, you know, like in a very fast way. So
when I listen to your description of the approach that you're taking to photography, and then you contrast that against things that happen spontaneously in real life, and being able to be in that moment to capture it, it would seem as, how difficult is it for you to, let me ask a better question. How difficult would it be for you to depart from what you already know in terms of a rehearsed setting to capture something that is in the moment?
Well, I have done it a lot too. I think it's like the main, when I say I have done cultural things, and I also take pictures all the time, like it's kind of my activity. So about that, I really think that when you kind of practice, I think photography is practice, definitely. I mean, first you learn, and everybody who, like, even though me, like everybody who's the first time that takes a camera is kind of a, you know, like tough, and you don't move that much. I think photography in those kind of a situation or is like a dance, you know. You have to dance with movement, and you have to dance with the things that they are going. Normally, it's like if you see photographers who are kind of a journalism, or they're going back, they're all the time moving, you know, like they're dancing and going down. And so I think that's something that helps a lot, because it's not like a stiff thing, static, you know, even though that you are kind of a freezing things, you know. But, and then I think you have to like educate your eye, you know. And all the time I say to my students, because don't realize how we see, like as a viewer, not without the camera. Normally we focus on one point, and even though we think we are seeing the whole picture, we are not. We are focusing in one specific thing.
Automatic depth of field.
So I think the photographer, what it does is that kind of educates the eye to see the whole scene. See, because you have a frame, and you have to be very aware what's in your framing, you know? Like inside your frame. So your eye goes very fast at the end.
So there's a big weekend coming up, and a lot of people are going to be taking pictures. Some people have the idea, but may not necessarily have the know-how. They may also have the camera, but don't necessarily know how to focus, how to choose a subject, and be able to draw a picture, so to speak, around that subject. What handy little tips would you have to share with us on that?
On that, I don't know. It
says, I teach full courses on this.
I know,
but we're going to the easy camera,
easy one,
right?
Okay, so I'm gonna grab my telephone. I don't know if I have to look at some place, but what I recommend always, like we normally, for example, we shoot the pictures as, like, you know, our eye is the high, you know, like. But then when you see a kid, or you see something that is like shorter than you, you go and put the camera, you know, like down, but like facing down. So I think that's one of the first mistakes we do, you know. Like, I think when you have to be aware of what's the altitude, like the height of your subject, and go and, you know, see him frontally, eye to eye, you know. And normally, to take, for example, portraits, like the good eye is like to put the camera a little bit under, so the eyes stays in the higher part of the composition, and it's a more like kind of a composed image. If you take pictures of a children, go down and take the picture of the children, no? Also, like, that's something, when we like kind of bend the camera, we get kind of distortions, very sometimes they can work, and sometimes it's like, I mean, the whole world is upside down, and gravity is kind of taking all the people down in the composition of the image. So I always recommend to have it very perpendicular to this floor, the camera. And about the exposition, well, the phones, if you push a little bit in the screen, you can do the camera expose the light that you are kind of touching. No. So, for example, I think I will try to avoid very high contrast the scenes. You know, like when you have a very strong light and a very shadow. I will recommend you to do pictures more in the morning, early in the morning, and in the afternoon. That light is more beautiful. What else? I think there's several applications. Like
backlight is something that people tend to learn the hard way.
A lot, but please let when we have the sunset, we all look at the sun, you know, and we love to take the picture of the sunset. But it's beautiful, the light of the sunset towards the other side. So I also say, turn around and take the picture, take the portrait with the sun, that sun in the face, and it's beautiful. That's the
golden hour.
The golden hour. Also, like the cameras in the phones are not very good in the night. No,
they're not low light cameras.
So I will use flash in that case. No, and you cannot take pictures of maybe a landscape or something that is you have to take pictures of objects that are close to use the flash of the camera. But also, like normally, what I do is that I have some apps for post production. You know, where you can and I can just tell mine. Is Snapseed is one that I use a lot. And do you know it?
I have it.
Do you have it? And ViscoCam.
Okay, I don't have that one.
ViscoCam has another kind, like a bunch of filters and kind of tools to post produce.
Now here's a question. Oftentimes, the craze and the trend right now, Marlene, selfies. But for someone who has a visual knack for things, they could argue a selfie isn't as creative as actually composing a proper shot. How do you speak to that?
So Mara will ask you, do you take selfies?
No, I think selfie is a whole thing going on.
It's a whole new phenomenon, right?
A phenomenon, a huge phenomenon for society, you know, because selfie, and I think it's a social topic to study, because now everybody is looking at themselves, you know, and it's so they're becoming very, very aware of their image to the open world, you know. So I think that's something
Mara,
to kind of
have strong opinions about this.
I don't do a lot of selfies because sometimes I do have that syndrome of being behind the camera. I don't like to be in the front of the camera.
You're not the subject of the shot.
No, I'm not the subject of the shot. But I think it's a very interesting thing to study. Yeah, definitely. And what I kind of missed a little bit is how photography is becoming ephemeral, you know, and we are not printing and materializing photography anymore, you know, like I was talking outside that the family albums is like it's Facebook.
It's now. Facebook albums.
Now it's your album of life is Facebook, and I kind of miss that, you know, like just print your pictures and make an album. I think that's gonna last more.
And they're great websites too that you can get a book printed with your digital albums. They're so beautiful to flip through.
Definitely.
You know, I understand what you're saying with the research on selfies. What fascinates me, and I'll say this on TV, it might upset some people. You know the new Samsung cameras that don't even give you an opportunity to take a picture of your natural face. It is automatically altering your eyes to be bigger, your face to be slimmer, and any blemish that you have is brushed out.
It's doing the
automatically
work. It's kind of
it's a little bit scary.
It's scary. And this is scary because we are becoming very it's like self-conscious, and also it's about the aesthetics. You know, because then you kind of transform yourself to what you want to be, how you want to be seen, no? And also, I think you end. Sorry, because you end kind of getting that personality, you know. Bring it to yourself. It's a topic that is quite.
and there are many who disagree with us right now. So.
Well, I don't know.
But I think that what we were talking about in terms of being able to use photography as a way of telling a story is something beautiful. And even if your story over the next couple of days is how much you love and enjoy being with your family, there's a story to tell there.
Yeah, there's a story everywhere.
Take great pictures while you're at it.
I think to be conscious, about what things you like, I think to tell stories, to talk about things, and I think that's very important, you know, in society.
Now, Mara, you've also offered your skills beyond this segment to persons here in Belize for the course of 5 days, for a 5-day course. You started last Thursday. Tell us a bit about how that has been going. It was free of cost, so if you missed the opportunity, then we're sorry, but.
Well, I like very much this workshop because this workshop is a very personalized workshop. So what I do is I do the first class is an introduction about the workshop, because I think I don't taught in techniques aspects like specifically, because for techniques you have to, there's a lot of tutorials about techniques but it's also a process, no? You cannot teach techniques aspects in 5 days, you know? So what I really do is like to make them through the process of kind of landing an idea and taking it to a visual language, you know? So I do like an introduction that is quite long, and that day I asked my students to choose a topic. No, they want to, and the first thing is that they have to go and approach that topic in a very natural and kind of how they feel it, you know. And the second class, we see and I talk with each one of them to kind of start developing and seeing the way of doing this process. So it's a very interesting workshop, and they have been great. I think the people.
You have a very diverse group.
Very diverse group. We're gonna have very different stories in it, and so we're gonna present the stories on Wednesday, and it has been great. I think here all of them are very interested. So.
Well, we look forward to seeing the work of your students, and we appreciate you sharing some tips with us for our Easter photography, right? Anything about, one thing I remember we had asked before was centering photos. If you're doing photos, should you center?
I think it's perfect. You normally when we uncenter the images, we have to be aware of what's happening on the other side, because then the image can be a little bit unbalanced. So it's something about balance. You have to think about balance, and also kind of see what's going on, because sometimes you take a picture of someone smiling and in the back is this guy doing like crazy things, totally and he steals the attention of the image. So
those
be
are the
aware about
photos that we see.
Those are the awkward ones.
Well, Mara, thank you for coming in and sharing a bit of your skill and your background with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much to you.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about water safety for Easter, so stay tuned.